Wonderful. So welcome everybody, and thank you so much for joining. I see a few familiar faces and some new faces, and you're all extremely welcome. Just a note, I think you probably got something on your screen saying that we are recording this session, just to let you know. My name is Carrie Pratt. I teach the Nexus Leadership Program at GIBS, and I'm sort of hosting the forum today. And before I introduce our guests, I just want to say something about the topic of embodied leadership. So in an article in Forbes magazine that was written in October 2020, Ginny Whitlaw wrote, "Embodiment is trending. At a time of deep divisions and discontent, the disassociations of head from heart, of talk from walk, of action from a felt sense of its consequences, are wholly inadequate for dealing with the wicked issues that we face. So it's not surprising that an antidote is resonating in the zeitgeist, what many herald as an emerging stage of human development in which clever head reintegrates with the wisdom of the body." And that's really what we're exploring today, this concept of embodied leadership and what a reconnection to the wisdom of our body might have to offer us. The forum is personally very exciting for me. I've been on a learning journey for the past year in an ontological coaching training program, which has engaged me in thinking and experimenting deeply with this issue of embodiment. And our guests today, Karen White and Pipile Simelane, have been incredible guides for me on that journey. Just a brief introduction to them. Karen is one of approximately 1,400 ICF Master Certified Coaches worldwide. And she leads the 18-month ontological coach training program in South Africa, Europe, and the United States. And Pipile is a partner and executive director at Nabantu. She's a leadership and organizational coach, leadership and organizational change expert, and also an ontological coach. And both of them share a passion for supporting others to become more meaningfully, more fully self-authoring of their lives. I'm personally really looking forward to learning with and from them both today. And from my own experiences, I can assure you that we are all in very, very good hands. One last thing before I hand over to Pipile. At the end of our session, I'm going to invite one of you to volunteer to give a vote of thanks to Karen and Pipile, just to say what you've taken out of the session. It might be an insight, an aha, a question, a reflection, just something that you're walking away with. So just please keep that in mind, and I'm hoping one person will be ready to step forward at the end of the session. So with that in mind, Pipile, I hand over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carrie, for a wonderful introduction. And thank you to GIBS for having us here today. Karen and I are really looking forward to spending some time with you, and really want to start with inviting you to just enjoy the journey and enjoy the ride today. We're going to be together for the next 90 minutes or so. And I think Karen and I have tried to design an interaction that's going to be largely experimental and experiential, very much focusing on the body, which is what today is all about, embodiment. And in starting this journey and this experiment, I'd like to invite you to join me in a practice around the body. And very much this practice is about noticing, observing what it is that's happening in your body. But before we start, what I'd like you to do is to just pause for a second, just a minute or so, and just start to notice right now, this very moment, what are you becoming aware of in terms of what's happening in your thoughts? What are you becoming aware of in terms of what's happening in your emotions and your feelings? And what are you becoming aware of in terms of what is happening in your physiology, in your body? So it's really an invitation to just notice, and maybe if there's one word that comes up for you, or a couple of thoughts or feelings, etc., just start to notice for a moment. I'll pause there for a bit. Okay, and as you notice, I'd like to invite you to just join me in a body practice. And I'd like to invite you to stand in terms of us doing this body practice. So this exercise is very much around just scanning, observing, and noticing what it is that is happening in your body, in your physiology. And what I'd like you to do in terms of going through the process with me, I will guide you in terms of areas to pay attention to, but you don't necessarily have to listen to me. You might start to observe and notice things as you go along and as you move up, and that's absolutely perfect, and that's okay. And what I'd like to just invite you to do is really to just give it a try, give it a go, really explore just with wonder and curiosity. And I'd like to invite you to suspend judgment. So as you go up and you start to notice, try and suspend the judgment of deciding whether it's good or bad, or it's just really about observing. It's about noticing. And as you go up, and as I take you through the scan, I'd also like to invite you to maybe when you notice something, you might just observe, ask yourselves a few questions about what it is that you're noticing. But if you would like to make any adjustments as you're going up, also feel free to do that. Okay, so as we start the practice, really it's about standing however you feel comfortable, wherever your body is taking you right now. And we're going to start the scan from the feet, going all the way up to the top of our heads. Okay, so as we start with the feet, I just want you to, just observe, invite you to just notice what it is that might be happening in your feet, whether there's a tension, a lightness, and perhaps observe in particular what's happening between your feet and the connection to the earth. Is there anything that you notice in terms of how you're standing, in terms of how you're connected to the ground, the light, some heaviness perhaps, feeling connected? It's really just about observing and noticing. And as you make your way up from your feet, as you work past the ankles, stopping there, glancing a little bit, noticing, work your way up to your knees and your knee area. Again, just observing, again, just noticing, suspending all judgment, just noticing with curiosity. So just pausing there in the knee area and just noticing how your knees are holding you up. And as you move up from your knee area, just taking an observation around your thighs, working your way up. And then just pausing a little bit in the hip area. So observing what's happening in your hips, perhaps working your way around, noticing what might be happening in your buttocks, whether there's some tension there, whether there's some lightness, or whatever it is that comes up for you as you notice and observe with curiosity. And working our way up to our torso, the torso area, really looking at the front of the torso, observing there what it is you may be noticing, but maybe just taking a wander to the back area, focusing on the lower back for a moment, seeing what might be happening there. And again, as you're working your way up and you're observing, sometimes as you observe, you might want to make some adjustments, and that's also okay. So as you notice, you might want to just move, whatever it is that comes to you in the observation. So working our way up, middle back, and then up to the top area of our torso in terms of our back and shoulders. Notice anything in particular there what might be happening. And as you move forward, working your way around to the chest area, I'd like to add an area of observation as you are noticing what's happening in your chest, whether it's tight or loose, and specifically what might be happening with your breath. As you're breathing, noticing whether the breath is shallow or deep, whatever words come to you in your observation of what might be happening with your breath and what might be happening in the chest area. And as we work up to the shoulders and the neck, I'd like you to pay some attention to not only whether there's tension or lightness, but perhaps what might be happening in your total posture. Your shoulders hunched forward, hunched back. Again, just an observation, an invitation to make adjustments if you'd like. And as we move up to our neck area, again, noticing what might be happening there, around the neck, the front of the neck, the side, the back. Take a moment to observe. And finally, moving up from the neck area to our face and our head. Start to notice how your head is being carried and lifted by the neck. You're noticing your chin up, down. And as you start to notice and observe the facial muscles, a frown, smile, neutral. What might be happening with your facial muscles? And then really just taking a quick pause and really just scanning all the way up again, just feet, knees, hips, back. One last glance as you go up, shoulders, chest, breathing, back, neck, head, and face. Okay, I'd like to invite you then to sit, if you just had a moment there, and maybe just perhaps let's chat a little bit about what you may have observed and what you may have noticed, particularly in terms of any shift in terms of your thoughts, any shifts in terms of your feelings and emotions, anything in particular in terms of your physiology, your body. Any noticings there? Anyone would like to share with us? I think that's Lita. Please go ahead and share.
Hi, everyone. That was really quite nice. Just that level of awareness of our bodies. So what I first observed and was very concerned about are my feet. The left arch is kind of, there's some pain there. Then I moved up and I was accepting my lower leg, my knees, and realizing that my knees carry a lot, but no tension there. And then my thighs, and then I reached a level of acceptance with my thighs, my bum, everything, realizing actually they're carrying a lot.
Yeah.
And I also changed my posture at that point, and then I moved up, lower back, and the small of the back, some pain there, and I tried to adjust, and then up to the shoulders, lots. Then I picked up tension around the neck, left and right shoulder. And I realized as I got to my head, I realized that actually my neck is busy all day. It's a busy neck.
Mm.
Like a line on my body, and it's probably carrying the heaviest of the loads. And
Yeah.
so that's what I observed.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
attention, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Lita, for sharing. And it sounds to me like there's been some great noticing and observing. And part of what I've learned in this journey is very much around, well, you know, it starts with observing. You can't shift what you don't notice. So noticing and observing is a wonderful start to learning. So thank you so much for sharing that. Anyone else would like to go in terms of sharing their observations and what they've noticed and the experience of doing the body scan? Malisa, please go ahead and share.
Yeah, so I think for me, the hardest part was when you were saying we shouldn't judge. I was like, what does that even mean? First thing I'm going to do is judge whether this is good or bad or what's happening in this ankle. But I think the moment of just pausing was, yeah, and actually noticing. I don't think I've ever done that. So that's like, okay, every part of your body actually needs a bit of attention, and you might have thought, oh, it's just a little ankle situation, which could be actually bigger if you don't take care now. That's my concerns. I felt like these are judgments that are small, but they could actually be very big in the long run if you don't take care of the small things.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And yes, the judgment thing, I put it there specifically. I suffer from the same virus of making judgments, particularly of self. So lovely that you were able to go through the process and notice that as well. Throughout the process and the journey. So really today is going to be very much focused on that. Really, I'm going to hand over to Karen shortly, and she'll just take us through quite in depth around the body and how it matters to leadership, and how it matters to really navigating change, particularly in this time of sort of high and relentless change taking place. And of course, looking at, from a leadership perspective, decision-making and expanding one's decision-making capacity. So very much looking forward to that. So I'm going to hand over to Karen now to take us through that, and then we'll end off with another experiment together. So look forward to that. Thanks, Karen. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Priscilla, and thank you, Carrie. Also, Lita and Palisa, I so appreciated what you shared, because I think for most of us, our awareness of our body is quite limited, even though it's with us wherever we go and it's part of us. So, Papila, I really thank you for that body scan. It was fantastic just to come back to my home. And as Papila was saying, although I'm going to share with you almost a basis for why the body matters in change, in leadership, in learning, in coaching, a large part of our time together is going to be focused on you having an experience of working within and through the body. What I'd like to do, though, and whether I'm working with leaders or with other coaches, so helping other coaches with their development, these are aspects about the body that I will share with people. So I think that the first thing to say before I get into the detail of the principles of working in the body, and by the way, if you can post in the chat as we go, please feel free to do so. I understand that there might be a bit of an issue with the chat being disabled, and I know that JD is looking into that now, but if you can post in the chat, feel free to do so as we go and add to the conversation. I think one of the things that I'm fascinated about working with, in and through the body, and it's an area, if you think about any area in terms of our way of being that's been neglected, it's the body. So certainly in our formal education, we're not taught to pay attention to the body, and yet the body is a key area of learning for us, and everything happens through the body. So to start off with, the first principle is our nervous system doesn't differentiate between real or imagined. And think about if you've had a challenging experience, whether it's been with a customer, or if you're a leader, or with a senior leader in the organization. And it's fascinating because you can have had a situation occur a long time ago, and then what happens is you go in to meet with the person again, and it's remarkable how the body just organizes itself in the way that you had that experience. And if you think about, traumas become very big as a focus. And if you think about post-traumatic stress, we live the stress as if it's happening in the present moment. And so it's really a powerful place for us to work, is to work in the body, and to be able to make subtle shifts in the body. And our moods and emotions are embodied. They are chemical processes. So ignoring the role of the body and saying, oh, leave your emotions at the door, good luck with that. And moods and emotions are really important because they inform the action we're able to take or not. And that includes, and this is especially for you, Papile, it includes our decision making. It includes the way we're able to speak. It includes what we're able to observe. And all of this is about the nervous system. So I love the work that's been done in neuroscience. And from my perspective, it's insufficient, because neuroscience in a way implies the brain, whereas we are biological beings. And our nervous system is the biological part of us that is responsible for our perception, our behavior, and communication. And so depending on what's happening in our nervous system, that will have a huge impact on what we're able to observe, what we're able to say or not say, as well as how we relate to others. And this is huge for leadership, if you think about it. And the other thing is, you know, and the way I like to describe it is, if I said to you, okay, we're going to learn a great new dance, and everyone's going to be able to do it at the end. And I share with you a whole lot of intricate steps. And then I say, okay, right, I've shared this with you. Let's all get up and let's do it. Unless you are a very skilled dancer, the chances are you will not be able to do it. Neither will I. And that's because learning and change takes place through our nervous system in action. And then the last thing I would like to say is that we embody habitual ways of being. And so if we go back to the beginning, where I was saying our nervous system doesn't differentiate between real or imagined, let's say we've had what we consider to be a negative experience with, maybe it's with a manager or a customer or anyone in our life. Without realizing it, we can have organized our body in a way that then becomes habitual. And we think this is normal and it's natural. Actually, it's just become familiar. And our body is designed in a particular way. And then over time, due to experiences that happen to us, due to things that we do in our lives, our body starts to configure itself in a different way that might not have us be at our best and most resourceful. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an overview. And we're going to move on to the next slide, which is going to go into a little more detail. So I think JD might be, JD, do you want me to take over with the slides just to check? If you're working on the technical, I'm going to take that as a yes. Okay. So you'll all just bear with me. And for those of you who are coaches, joining today, I will often share this with the people that I work with. So it's something with leaders so that they can get a sense of why we focus in this arena. And for those of you who are leaders, I'm speaking to you directly as well. Let's just start. Okay. So our bodies are responsible for our perception, how we perceive the world, how we take everything in from the world, and learning, as well as how we are experienced by others. So if you think about leadership presence, that's not a head thing. It's, you know, when someone walks into a room and you have a felt sense of them and they make an impact, that's about a felt body experience. And let's start with, we're going to keep talking about the nervous system and how change and learning happens. So firstly, to start with fascia. So we have fascia, it's connective tissue, and that is throughout the body. And years ago, when medical students used to study the body, they used to actually discard the fascia. They saw it as a sheath around the body and between organs, and they didn't actually examine it and explore it. And in recent years, probably the last 50 years or so, they started to look at the fascia, this connective tissue that's throughout the body, and started to look at what its role is, as well as holding the body together. And it's throughout the body as a whole, throughout organs and between organs. And what they started to see is that the fascia is neuron rich. So neurons connect throughout the body, and they are the ones that are responsible for learning and change. And new neuronal connections result in new learning. And so they realized it's a really, really important aspect of our physiology and our biology. So that's on the one side. And then for those of you, I don't know if you've heard of the polyvagal theory, but this is really important from a leadership point of view. Stephen Porges developed the polyvagal theory. He started to look at the autonomic nervous system, and he actually developed a way of observing what's going on in the autonomic nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system is running in the background. It's really important for our daily experience. We can't do without it. We also can't often directly affect it, especially if we're not aware of it. And what he identified with the polyvagal theory is there's a hierarchy to our autonomic nervous system. And the first, I'm just going to briefly talk through them. The hierarchy, starting up at the top, the ventral vagus. Sorry, I'm going to take a step back. The vagus nerve extends from the brain through the body, so through the central nervous system, the spine, and then extends out into the rest of the body. And we used to think that it was the brain that was sending messages down into the body. And actually what they've started to discover is 80% of signals go from the body to the brain. So that's quite significant in how we think about our nervous system and the body as a whole. Going back to the polyvagal theory, so he started with the ventral vagus. And what the ventral vagus is at sort of the top of the hierarchy, if you like. And it is when we feel connected and safe and capable, and our homeostasis, our balance in our body is good, then we are in the ventral vagus area. And that means that we have access to big picture thinking, we have access to creativity, we have access to innovation. And so that's fantastic. We're not in that section in the ventral vagus area all the time. What happens is as our system gets overwhelmed, and it could be anything from someone hooting in the traffic to going into a meeting and being nervous about the meeting and then getting negative, what we consider to be negative feedback. What then happens is our system moves to either the sympathetic nervous system, which is kind of the next stacking order down, and that's our fight or flight system. And so there's going to be a tendency for us to want to defend ourselves or to run away. And effectively, what it means is we're not able to think as well as we would like, and we're not able to respond as much as we would like. We're in much more of a reactive pattern. And then the last section is the dorsal vagus area, and that's known as the shutdown response. It's when we've collapsed, we've withdrawn, and while that might seem like quite a nice place to go, it means that we're not resourceful. And so these two areas, paying attention to the fascia and the neurons and the polyvagal theory, I think is really, really important, because if we're able to start to attune to that, we're able to work at the level of our nervous system in quite a different way. So hopefully that gives you a bit of perspective. And I'm going to keep going. Essentially, what we're interested, and if you think about leadership presence and how people move through the world, there are three areas that we can pay attention to. So very much like Pepile helped us as we went through the body scan, we can become aware of our postural alignment. Are we slightly collapsed? Are we rigid? Or are we somewhere in between, more relaxed? What's going on with our muscle tension? You know, how are we holding ourselves? Of course, we need some degree of muscle tension, but are we holding ourselves rigid? Which, by the way, would link to us being in the sympathetic nervous system, for example, rather in the ventral vagal, which has us being creative, innovative, being able to connect. And what's going on with our breathing? And there's an expression, how we breathe is how we think, and how we think is how we breathe. And for some of us, we're not aware of our breathing at all. But these are three areas that we can immediately start to pay attention to start to create a shift. And I'm going to move on and finish, and then I'm going to stop and see if there are any questions, one or two questions before we keep going. So the human skeleton and our nervous system and our body is designed to be spontaneously upright, fluid and fluent, both statically and in a dynamic way. And you'll see below insults to form. So this going right back to the first point I made about the body not differentiating between real or imagined. Things happen to us in life, even if people have the best, they're doing their very best in terms of us. So we go to school and a teacher says, oh, don't be silly. That would be considered, for example, an insult to form. Or you go into a meeting and perhaps someone gives you feedback that you feel is critical. That would be an insult to form. And in subtle ways, we then organize our bodies in a way that almost holds that insult to form. And that has an impact on our postural alignment, our muscle tension, our breathing. And it also has an impact on our connective tissue. And then what happens in our polyvagal system. So what? Because that sounds all very theoretical. So this all has to do with leadership presence, how we show up both for ourselves and for other people, our decision making. If we're not able to, for example, access our ventral vagal system, that's going to compromise or impact on our decision making. And our building relationships in terms of being able to, part of the polyvagal theory, which I'm not going to get into, to co-regulate with others, allows us to build relationships and allows us to feel safe and for other people to feel safe. And if you consider the complexity with which we navigate the world and the need for us to be able to build complex realities together, building relationships is absolutely crucial. So let me just stop there and see if I don't see anything in the chat box. So I just want to check if there is if there are any comments, maybe 1 or 2 comments or questions.
Karen, it looks like your chat box is disabled.
Yes. And I don't know that there's anything, let me just see. There's nothing that I can do. Is that Judy?
Yes.
Unfortunately, there's nothing I can see to do from my side. I'm just having a look. So I'm afraid I can't invite chat in the chat box, but if you or anyone else would like to make a comment about what you've heard so far, we'd be very happy to hear from you.
I will make, oh, there we go. The chat box is fixed now. But
Yeah.
Just from my own personal perspective, I've actually recently started doing yoga and doing yoga teacher training. And it's so interesting that I'm in this conversation today because, you know, it's something I've just become aware of. And I mean, in the last 6 or 8 weeks where I've been working on breathing and, you know, how to breathe properly, you know, it's life-changing. I cannot believe the difference in my own personal being because of that.
Oh, it's lovely to hear. And the way I think about it is, you know, if we all reclaimed our bodies, which are with us all the time anyway, what a difference it would make to our capacity, and also to the quality of our life. So it's really lovely to hear that. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else? And I see the chat box is now working. Thank you, JD and Carrie and Sibongile. Yes, phew. That's a good way into the body, is to sigh. All right, well, please feel free to put anything that's occurring for you in the chat box. I'm going to keep going. And as we were saying earlier, really a lot of today is about you having an experience and Tobile, reclaiming your body. So this is the next phase. So let me keep going. So what we're going to do is we're going to invite you into, we're going to go into breakup rooms in about 10 minutes time. And I'm going to ask you, in fact, if you can, before I start to share the exercise, think of an area in your life where you're experiencing some challenge. It could be a relationship, it could be a situation, and to hold that in mind as you go through this experience. So you're not going to be required to share it with anyone. But, you know, it could be I'm having a struggle with my line manager or my boss, or I've got a big project that I'm involved in that I'm finding really, really difficult. And I just seem to be going over, not being able to make progress. Could be a parental thing. So something with your children, your parents. It could be a customer. So anything. And because we're going to ask you to actually work with the situation. And I'm going to walk you through, so please, if you'll just bear with us, I'm going to walk you through the exercise that I'm going to ask you to work with with a partner in a breakout room. And Pepila has already done a great job of taking us through the body, but Carrie's going to post in the chat box these screenshots of this PowerPoint that you can take into the breakout rooms with you. So some body cues for noticing. So this is, we all have a body, it's with us all the time. And this is about starting to become more aware of it. So I'm going to actually talk you through. So when you're working with someone, you can ask them, or the person who's, everyone's going to be, or the, yeah, sorry, give me a moment. All right. So you're going to work in a partnership and you're going to be standing, and one person is going to be effectively coached. Doesn't matter if you don't coach, don't worry about that. And the person who's being coached, you're going to be cued through by your partner pay attention to what you're aware of with your feet. For example, are you standing solidly on your feet? Are you moving forward? Are you moving back? Then your knees, just to be aware of in relation to the situation that you have, how are you holding your knees? They might be locked, pulled up. You might feel like you're going to collapse. What are you aware of in your hips and pelvis? Are your hips moving slightly back, for example, leaning to one side, moving forward? You just really wanting to be observant. What's happening in your torso area? Firstly, your lower torso. How are you holding your stomach in, for example, drawing back? You're just wanting to be aware of that. Then the upper torso, what's happening with your chest and your shoulders? What are you aware of? Sometimes, we're pulling up our shoulders without realizing, so just to be aware of that. It can be quite useful to pay attention to the back of the body and what's happening with your shoulder blades. Is there tension in your shoulder blades? And part of chest and shoulders, also your arms. How are you holding your fingers? Are your fingers more of a fist? Are they able to relax? Then the head and the neck and facial muscles. So with our neck, are we pushing our neck forward? It's quite interesting with all the work we do online that for lots of people, they're realizing that they're actually starting to hold their neck in an unnatural sort of way, or kind of moving away from the situation. So just becoming aware of that. And then facial muscles. Are you holding any tension? So they are frown, jaw, is that clenched? So just to start to become aware of those areas. So those are body cues for noticing. So that's the first thing. And then and really we'd love to invite you. Please, if you get it perfect, you've got to leave the room, the Zoom room, you can't stay. So effectively what I'm offering you is please make it an experiment and be curious and don't expect to get this right. So it's really about having a play and an experiment. So there'll be a coachee, and the coachee will talk about you'll have your situation in mind. So let's say, for example, I want to work on a situation with I've got a young adult son, and I want to work on a situation with him because we're having some struggles. So I'll have thought about the emotions associated with the issue, and I'm going to give a label. If Papile and I were working together, I would give a label. I would just say bad, or I could give it a color, red or purple, whatever, multicolored. So please do not explain what the issue is. So don't get into any content about what the issue is about. So you'll just share the label with your partner, and then the coach will actually work through the following steps. You'll ask your partner to describe aspects of his or her posture using the basic somatic framework that I've just gone through. So feet, knees, hips, pelvis, etc. And just thinking about that situation to go through what they're aware of in their body using the somatic framework. Then while standing, invite your partner to move to another space, either a step to the right, left, back, front, and then to shift into what they consider to be a more helpful posture. And they can again, so the coachee, think about the basic somatic framework, and you might think, oh, well, I'm realizing I'm leaning back, I'm going to lean forward a little bit more. Or I realize that my hips are actually moving back, I'm going to move that. Someone once told me that when I am in a disagreement that my chin comes up. So I would think, okay, I want to bring my chin down a little bit, and just invite the person, the coachee, to make any adjustments. And then once they've done that, once they've made some adjustments, if you can see something, so you're observing, and let's say you were working with me and you saw my chin was up, you could say, Karen, how about you just try and drop your chin a little bit and move back a little bit. You seem to be leaning a bit forward, and see if that makes a difference. So you'll give some suggestions. And then after you've done that, and the person notices what the difference is in how they're holding their body, you ask the coachee to move back to the previous space and the old unhelpful posture, and to notice the experience. And the reason for that is the body learns really well through contrast and exaggeration. So we want to help them just notice what it's like to be in that old unresourceful body, and then to go back to the spatial location of the more resourceful posture. And then make sure that they are able to step into that more helpful body. And then once they've done that, you ask the coachee to think about the issue and what they notice to be different emotionally and in the way that they think about it. Don't worry about the next step. So the second last, you can ignore that given the time frame. And then the last question, do you genuinely give yourself permission to begin to fully live into this more resourceful posture? So that's the process. And again, just please go in, have a play. Don't worry about messing it up. It's really an opportunity to have an exploration. And then I'm just going to do a summary of what it is you're going to be doing. So the first person, remember, you're just going to share your label, no explanations. Demonstrate the muscle tension, the posture, and the breathing, and any other aspects you're aware of. So for example, shoulders a bit hunched. Oh, my breathing's, I'm not breathing very well. I'm breathing faster. And then the partner or the coach, making sure you have your partner's permission, share your observations of possible shifts they could make in their muscle tension, posture, and breathing. They go back to the old position, experience that again, move back to the new position, make any adjustments, and you then inquire about the effect the shifts have on how the issue is experienced and observed. And just to give you a sense of timing, we're going to give you 12 minutes each way. So a minute to set up. Then one person will share their label, go through the coaching process for 12 minutes. Then you'll switch over and the other person will have a chance to share their label and go through the coaching process with the body. And then 5 minutes at the end to share what that was like. So let me just stop share. And see if anyone has any questions or if that makes sense. Maybe you can give me a thumbs up if everyone's okay. That would be great. I'm getting thumbs up. Okay. So Carrie, thank you for putting the links in the chat box. And now to ask, is it Sibongile, you're going to put everyone into breakup rooms?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll see you back in 30 minutes at 20 past, check in and then close.
Sure.
I think, Karen, maybe just to let everybody know that it will happen automatically. So they'll be automatically brought back and that kind of thing. So don't worry about trying to leave or come back. And
thank you. Judy can't stay. See the breakout room. Oh, Crystal and Karen are in the same room. Can you believe it? And to see some faces. So it would be lovely to hear from you what that experience was like. Anyone who'd care to share?
Yeah, I'm happy to share. I was with Carrie Pratt, and she really helped me to not only really to change my physiology and my body, but I think she also helped me to get in touch with the emotion that I really needed to deal with this particular challenge. And in my case, it was acceptance, which we all know is so powerful, and yet really in difficult situations, quite tough to access. So thanks very much, Carrie.
Carol?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, oh, yes, thank you, Carol. We did hear you, and it sounds like it was a very good experience.
Great, thank you.
I can go. I thought it's a bit quiet now. I'm a bit in a co-working space. I was with Crystal. Yeah, it was very awkward doing everything while everyone's here, but fun nonetheless. I was with Crystal, and there were just things that I didn't even think of, which was so enlightening for me. And just how she noticed that, you know, because I often hold back emotion or hold back what I want to say, and holding back tears. And that was directly related to the positioning that I was doing often. And it's something that struck me from childhood, is something that I've been doing since. And so it was a huge revelation for me today, just acknowledging that some of the stuff that I've carried and that holding back of my emotions has also caused me to do these funny things that I've been doing, and how releasing it was to change that position was also so insightful. So thank you. Thanks, Crystal.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Vile. And it's a really, both with what you and Carol shared, it's amazing how a small and subtle shift in the body can create such a profound impact in terms of how we experience ourselves and how we perceive situations. And it's, you know, it's really, it's a superpower, and we're not taught this. So fantastic you had an experience, and very nice to see you in the room, Crystal. And Karen. Anyone else like to share?
I was actually hoping Karen would share from our little experience we had. But I think we felt like breathing has changed our lives. Yeah, so just breathing, I think, can really release quite a lot of tension through your body, but just breathing correctly and fully, I think that's where, for me, this experience has shown that and sometimes just moving your leg just a little can make the world's difference in how your whole body feels. Yeah, so it was very big for me. It was awesome.
Fantastic. Thanks, Pelisa. And I hope I'm pronouncing everyone's names correctly. Feel free to tidy me up if I'm not. Yeah, so it's really lovely. And it's, you know, people think, oh, it's got to be a significant shift, something small, which can be huge. So it's really lovely. And perhaps Crystal and Kieran, just to check if there's anything you would like to add, seeing as you were in a partnership, or Carrie.
I'm happy to jump in quickly. I think for me, there's just, and I was with Carol, and she facilitated me beautifully between these two bodies. And I think the thing for me is that moving from, you know, back from this lighter body back into this heavier body, it's just such a hugely powerful contrast, and it's so uncomfortable. I'm sort of, ask myself, why am I in it in the first place? And why didn't I notice I was in it? And moving back and forth, yeah, and as you said, maybe the body learns through contrast, but it's such a profound contrast, much more so than I ever expect it to be.
Oh, that's such a good observation. And it's interesting how quickly. So the body is the slowest and most profound to change, and yet very quickly it can give us the cues for what's going on, and how things have just become familiar. And so they feel natural, and they're not the way our body is designed to be held and to move. So that's brilliant. Karen, I think you had come off, so I just want to give you a chance.
Yeah, no, just to add, we had a lovely experience, Palesa and myself, and it really was showing both of us how our that default position that you go into of the tension and thinking of subtle changes. Palesa moved her knee a little bit and it changed like everything upwards. It was like, I think she felt like a wave going up. I'm putting words in her mouth, but it was like, she just said it was like this release of her lower back, and it was amazing. And then, yeah, so I think just knowing that how powerful it is and how much control we have to go into situations for both of us was, well, for me, and I think for Palesa too, was really wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm aware of time, and so I would like to hand back over to, at first, just to say, before I do, thank you, Papile, for great partnering. Thank you, Carrie, JD, Sibongele, and GIBS for hosting us. And also just a shout out to my collaborator and colleague, Alan Seiler, where a lot of this work is drawn from. So huge appreciation to him, as well as Stephen Porges and Deb Dana for their polyvagal theory. And with that, I'm going to hand back to whoever, Carrie.
Thank you so much. And let me just, Sibongele, do you mind putting Karen and Papile's details in the chat, please? There we go. Yeah, perfect. That works. If it can go in the chat, that's better. So then I can see everybody, but if not, that's okay. So I wanted to invite a participant, if possible, just to give a vote of thanks to Karen and Papile. If someone's willing to just to say thank you and share one thing that you're taking away with you. And I don't know if there's someone we haven't heard from who's keen to step up, or if not, someone we have heard from.
Okay, I'm happy to say thanks if I hope I'm not interrupting anyone. Okay. Yes, Karen and Papile, thanks so much. I really thought that today was just a great learning experience. And as you mentioned earlier, Karen, we use our bodies to learn. I will echo Alan Seiler's work. I have done a little small introductory course in his work, and it's great. So I encourage any of you to read his books. They are great. And to be honest, yeah, I'm just really grateful for today. No real insight, but just to say I'm so grateful. So thank you to everyone who participated and everyone who organized today.
Thank you so much, Carol. And yeah, for my part, big thanks to Karen and Papile for being willing to do this. It means a huge amount, and I always benefit from your wisdom, from your experience, and I know that the gift of your time is a big one. So thank you so much for that, and thank you to use your imagery, Karen, for teaching us a few new dance steps today. And to everyone who attended, really thank you for your time, for the gift of your time, and also for your active participation, for being willing to learn a few new dance steps, or at least give them a try. And I hope that there's something that's settled in, not only into your head today, but into your body, and that it will continue to sort of take root and grow as you go away from here. So I see the details of Karen and Pile are in the chat if you want to copy them and get in touch with them further. Otherwise, my deep thanks to everybody.